Them so much. Let's be opening our Bibles to John chapter 9. So grateful for the Lambs and the Boston seniors to be here today and to have seen them over the years, the last few years, coming and visiting, and I'm just glad they still want to come back. That's awesome. And I pray that today is helpful. We've been doing a series in John chapter 9, and as we're opening our Bibles there, just reintroduce what we've been talking about. We're talking about vision. Spiritual vision, as was well illustrated earlier with the mud and the spit. We've been learning more about Jesus and his interaction with this blind man and how fault-finding and blame-shifting can really block our spiritual vision, how fear can block our spiritual vision. We showed some images that instilled some fear in you last week. And, one of them was this guy, and then I won't show the other one that we showed last week. The video had everyone jumping up and down, and I think everyone was okay medically, but I was a little concerned. So we won't go back there. But the fears of our lives also can block our spiritual vision. So today, goodbye snake, we will come into the last part of the text and talk about the fact and the faith of what Jesus did at this time. In John chapter 9, verse 1. As he went along, he saw a blind man from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Well, neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. As long as it is today, we must do the work of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." Having said this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like it." But he said himself, and he insisted, "I am the man." "How then were your eyes opened?" they demanded. Well, he replied, "The man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and I washed, and then I could see." "Where is this man?" they asked him. "I don't know." They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind, and now on the day which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. "He put mud in my eyes," the man replied, "and I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he doesn't keep the Sabbath." But others asked, "How can a sinner do such miraculous signs?" And so they were divided. Finally they turned again to the blind man. "What have you to say about it? It was your eyes he opened." The man replied, "He's a prophet." The Jews still did not believe that he had been blind and received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Is this the one that you say was born blind? How is it that he can now see?" "Well, we know he's our son," the parents answered, "and we know that he was born blind, but how he can see now or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He's of age. He'll speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for already the Jews had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Christ would be put out of the synagogue. That was why his parents said, "He's of age. Ask him." A second time they summoned the man who had been blind. "Give glory to God," they said. "We know this man is a sinner." And he replied, "Whether he's a sinner or not, I don't know. But one thing I do know. I was blind, but now I see." Then they asked him, "Well, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered, "Well, I told you already, and you didn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" Some attitude on the blind ones. Then they hurled insults at him and said, "You're this fellow's disciple. We're disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from." The man answered, "Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to godly men who does his will. Nobody's ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." To this they replied, "You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us?" And they threw him out. All right, let's stop there. talk about the fact. The fact. It says in verse 24, one thing I know. This is a fact in his life. If there's one thing he knows, look, I don't know about where he's from. I don't know if he's a true prophet. I don't know where he came from. I don't know where he's going. I don't know what else he's done. But one thing I know, I was blind, and now I see. Now, there's an interesting thing that happens there. If you look back at the end of verse 24, there's something that the Pharisees say to him as they start inquiring and investigating the issue again. You see that phrase there? What is it? Give glory to God, right? Yeah. You see that? Now, this phrase is really important. This is the initiation of a legal investigation according to Hebrew law. These words in the Hebrew culture meant that we are now about to initiate this legal discussion. And so you are under oath by the power of the living God. In other words, come to the witness stand. We're about to question you. And it's the equivalent of him putting his hand on the Bible and saying, I swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, the whole truth, so help me God, right? So what just happened there is really important. So they are initiating this extra level of seriousness. He is under oath. And do you think that the blind man cowers at this thing that's about to happen to him? Do you see him sort of like shrinking back or no?
Nope.
No, in fact, quite the opposite, right? He loves to engage this discussion. It's actually quite shocking. I mean, here's a guy who's begged his whole life, on his knees. He's sort of the submissive one, waiting for others to give him whatever scraps they have. And now he's debating with the best of the best on their terms, and I think he's doing pretty good, don't you think?
Yep.
This guy's a great debater. They say, well, in our culture and in what we think, and traditionally, God would never listen to a sinner. And so there's this divide, because Jesus claimed to do this miracle. The Jews claimed that Jesus was a sinner. So this new blind, now seeing great debater makes a really savvy legal argument. He says, I object. The fact is, he did a miracle. So get your eyes off the sinner-non-sinner thing. I'm challenging your whole culture. I'm challenging the whole yoke, your interpretation of Torah. I'm challenging the way you think things are done God's way. This is big time. He's putting himself in the line of fire. He said, according to your own legal interpretation, God would not allow a sinner to be healed, and yet here I am, I'm living evidence that you guys are wrong. He's on the offense. Look at what he does afterward. He said, oh, wow, you guys are so interested. You must want to become his disciples too, huh? That's really what this is all about. You just want to follow him. And so you're kind of getting more information from me. Is that what this is all about? And they're like, what are you talking about? Now they're on the defensive. He also uses a little bit of sarcasm. At least that's what I call it. He says, remarkable. Isn't that remarkable? You don't know where he's from. And you don't know how it happened. And yes, here I am. And I can see. And I can see the look on your face. No one's ever heard of healing a man born blind. And this prophet comes on the scene with healer status. And you guys are left curious in the dark. Blind. Who's blind now? This blind beggar, and if you guys read other accounts of blindness and blind people in the New Testament, you see how poorly they're treated. These are the social misfits of society. They are on the bottom of the totem pole. We already read a couple of weeks ago about the Hebrew culture and how no priest could ever be blind. You could not offer a sacrifice of an animal that was blind. It was a mark. It was a sin. Someone must have messed up. Either parents, the baby in the womb, or the past ancestry. Someone has messed up for this guy to be blind. And yet here he is, emboldened by Jesus. As we looked at these inspiring examples the last couple of weeks in our Bible study of modern-day heroes who have embraced whatever handicap or whatever they're dealing with and really have gone beyond, I feel like they've been emboldened. You remember Patrick Henry Hughes? Remember him? And he's born without eyes, and he has all these different conditions and conditions that are intersected that are unique in him. And his dad is out there believing in him. He's playing piano. He's got this amazing gift for music. And he's like, look, just give me a trumpet and a wheelchair, and I'm ready to go. And he's unstoppable. And I talked about my buddy that I met, my new friend, over at the treadmill going 8.5, right? And he's blind, and yet he's on the treadmill just running faster than anybody in that whole thing. And he's like, look, just show me the gym, and I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. You know, we looked at Jason McElwin, who was there on the bench, the water boy for the basketball team up in Rochester, and just struggling with autism and all the challenges there. And he had suited up that day, first time he'd ever suited up in actual uniform, and then he's just like, Coach, put me in. Coach, I'm ready. And he's just salivating, and he gets put in with 4 minutes left to go. And not only does he touch the ball, not only does he make one basket, he scores 20 points in 4 minutes. Yes. And the interviewer said, man, you just caught fire. He said, yeah, I was as hot as a pistol.
Hot like a pistol.
Just give me the basketball. These people are emboldened. Yes. You know, I want to ask us today, how emboldened do we feel? Knowing for many of us that sit here have been able to receive the most amazing gift that could ever be offered on the face of this planet. In time and place and human history, to be offered the forgiveness of sins and a promise in eternity with God is priceless. Yes, absolutely. And it is a fact in most of the people's lives in this room. That fact should make us bold.
Yeah.
It should make us go, you know what? I'm going crazy. Give me a Bible and show me the gym.
Yep.
Give me someone to pray with. Just point me in some direction. I'm filled with fire about what I want to tell people about, because I have been forgiven of so much. I think too many of us worry that we don't know all the facts, and we're not able to engage in that, high-level doctrinal legal discussion. And so we pull back a little bit from engaging with people in spiritual conversation. We say, well, I haven't read Darwin or Dawkins or Dan Brown. We're fazed by debates about creationism and evolution and Da Vinci Code and documentaries on the History Channel. And we show up and we say, oh my goodness, what do I say?
Come on.
That's right. You want to know what you say? One thing I know.
Right. Right.
One thing I know. Let me show you a picture of me 10 years ago. Kristen did such a great job sharing her heart about her past life. Amen. 17 years old. And 17 years later. That's pretty cool. She's at that mark right now where now every day is a day longer than she lived in darkness. I'm looking forward to that day. It's coming to me soon. One thing I know. What about Paul? You say, well, wait a minute, I can remember examples in the Bible where people were really learned, they did their scholarly research. What about Paul? Yeah, Paul was good, right? He knew their philosophies. He was well-read. He was well-versed in history, religion, the arts, politics, even poetry. And yet, when you see his account in Acts 9, Acts 22, and Acts 26, and he's given a chance to defend his faith, what does he say? He shares his conversion story. Yeah. He said, one thing I know. I met Jesus on the road, and I was blind, and now I see. One thing I know. That was his best argument. Now, it didn't stop Paul from learning. He took his scrolls with him. He quoted their poets continually, and even said, we need to be all things to all men so we might win some. But he said, my life is my greatest witness. The truth of a changed life is evidence enough.
Right.
There's certain people in your life that you've known for a long time, and you can't really trick them anymore, right?
Right.
People that you meet for the first time, you can sort of put on a front, you can say this or that. They don't really know, right?
Yeah.
But people that have known you for a while, it's like, that's funny. All right, so let's get back to who you really are. And, I had a best friend for years and years. His name is Alex. And, my little brother's another kind of guy like that. I mean, my little brother's seen me his whole life. He's 3.5 years younger. And there gets to a certain point with guys like Alex and Peter where they just sort of knew me.
Right.
There was no getting around it. Couldn't come up with some kind of persuasive, savvy argument to convince them of anything. They knew who I was. They knew what I stood for. And when I started studying the Bible and making the decision to become a Christian, their heads turned. Not because of any arguments I made, and I had a lot. But it was because of the life that was different. And I give God all the credit because somehow